Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
What's up, everybody? Thank you again for hopping on the Jboy Show. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You know, I always say, I don't care how you're listening. It doesn't matter, just as long as you guys are joining us. Got another great episode today. Going to dive more into some SEC football, get some projections from a guy that you're going to know that I really enjoy talking to. But first, I got to give a shout out to our partners at betonline.ag. Head over there today. Look, March Madness is over. Baylor got the dub. As I said, as I felt good about him +5, I thought that was stealing, out physicaled him. The online casino over there is always open. We got Major League Baseball, started out pretty hot in that, going to try and keep it rolling. So head over to betonline.ag today and tell them that Jboy sent you. Got some great parlays, teasers, pleasers, however you get down. They've got everything for you, and they're going to put the sharps out there. They're not going to play games. They're going to gamble with you, give you a chance to win some money. So it's betonline.ag. So head over there as soon as possible. But let's get into it. Very excited to welcome from DawgNation, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, an SEC network contributor. You see him everywhere on the Feinbaum Show, talking all SEC. Mike Griffith. Mike, love having you on, man. Really excited to kind of see what you think as we're rolling through spring here, getting toward the season. And it's always fun when we get together, my friend.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been a great spring. It's been a lot of fun. Certainly that NCAA tournament was great. I don't know if I'm quite feeling like the new normal's here yet, but I think we took a big step seeing those teams compete. It was great to see them be able to finish that tournament, is like they did with I thought a really great Final Four.
Yeah, it ended up being fantastic. I know it was kind of a blowout in the game, but it was against what everybody expected. I'm just glad we got that matchup. You know, it was canceled during the season because of COVID, and we finally got it. But, Mike, when I'm looking, and we talk about finally having it, thank goodness we have a spring now. I'm sure all the coaches in the SEC are pretty excited about that, because I always say that's when the team is formed. That's where jobs are won. We've had multiple guys come on here and talk about it, not only cover it, but played it. And Mike, I want to get down to the nitty gritty, and I want to start with the SEC East. And I've said all along, and I'm going to keep saying it. It looks like Georgia and everybody else. I'm not high on Florida this year. I've gotten some backlash for that. I don't know if Emory Jones is going to be able to recreate what was there last year. You lose guys like Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts. You can go down the list. But just from the outside looking in, I know we're still early. How do you see the SEC East? Is it Georgia and everybody else? And if so, who are those next two tier of teams?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I do think it's because Florida lost so much. And that's a compliment to Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney and Pitts. I mean, those were really special players. Certainly they put on a display against Georgia last year in Jacksonville. I thought they played Alabama better than anybody. I know that Florida rolled over and played dead in the bowl game, but nobody could complain about that effort and that performance against Alabama. I mean, that was a game that, deep into the fourth quarter, I'm still thinking Florida might pull this out. And I thought that was one of Kyle Trask's best moments was in that game. I thought he played extremely well. And certainly Kadarius Toney was such an explosive guy. That's not to say that Florida couldn't have some guys emerge. Certainly Dan Mullen has proven that he can do a lot of things with the X's and the O's and the playbook. But does he have the talent? And because that's an unknown commodity, it's hard for us to project Florida to be that good when you lose players like Toney, Pitts, and Trask. So it's really not an insult to Florida as much as it is a compliment to the guys that were there last year and did such a fine job. Tennessee, it's a program that, you want to put in the top 3 every year just because of the stature and the tradition. But it's been a minute. Younger people are going, what are you talking about? I'm 21 years old. I don't know what you're talking about. It's been a minute, 2007 since Tennessee played in the SEC. It's hard to believe.
That's crazy.
If you would have told me that when I covered the Vols, that them and Vanderbilt would be almost identical over I would have said there is no way. I don't know what planet you're coming from. That can't possibly happen. But the failure of that administration with Jimmy Cheek and President Joe DiPietro, they just went right down the tubes when their president and their chancellor kind of ignored sports for a while, made some really bad decisions, maybe some bad hires. some bad compliance, and it's just finally come to a head. And you've got to think this is rock bottom for Tennessee right now. You got to think that. They'll bounce back, but I don't think it'll be this year. Kentucky has become a respectable, physical football. They've kind of become the Mississippi State of the East. Like,
I like that.
Okay, you might beat them on the scoreboard, but you're going to leave that stadium with some bruises. Kentucky's going to take a piece out of you. They put down Georgia. Georgia lost 4 guys in that football game against Kentucky. That was a physical, brutal football game. And I think there was some residual damage against Florida in the next game for Georgia. I mean, they lost Jordan Davis. They lost their nose tackle. Their safety got banged. There was a lot of guys that got hurt in that. So Kentucky, I've got respect for Kentucky. That's a 500 or a little bit better program that's going to get a piece out of you. When they get some pieces in place, you wonder if they can take that next step. They had that 10-win season. That was impressive. Is that the peak? I don't know. But I'm going to put Kentucky right there, battling with maybe Missouri for that 2 spot or 3 spot. Maybe I give Florida maybe a little bit of an edge just because I think the Gators and Vanderbilt, I joke and I say if they show up for games, it's a win because of the act that they pulled on Georgia. And people, well, Mike, they were short on players. And I said, no, let's not have the revisionist history. I want to make sure we leave this very clear what happened last year with Vanderbilt and Georgia, okay? Vanderbilt begged off because of – now, there were some teams like Arkansas that played South Carolina. Even though they were missing players, they said, you know what? We got the right thing for the league is to play these games. We're playing these games. Vanderbilt said, no, we can't do it. We can't do it. We don't have enough. And then the next week, Jake, they miraculously had enough to play the home game with Tennessee. Oh, now we've got enough. We want to play 10. Now we got enough. And then the next week they were supposed to play Georgia. He said, no, we don't have enough again. Listen, normally you say, well, look, it's just one game. What does that matter? Here's what it matters. Georgia seniors, if they win that game, they go out as the winningest group of seniors in Georgia football history. That is a legacy. That is a lifetime achievement award. That is something that your grandkids and their grandkids celebrate. My grandfather, my father, my uncle was a part of the winningest class ever. And Vanderbilt stole that. They stole that. Now, could it be just a coincidence? They didn't have enough one week, but they had enough the next to play Tennessee.
There's no coincidences, Mike. You know that. Okay,
so you know where I'm coming. So that's kind of so. I know this Clark Lee guy didn't have they're talking about him like he's Clark Kent, by the way. It's still Vanderbilt. Okay, so I'm going to go Missouri, Florida, Kentucky is the 3 teams, and I just think Tennessee needs to kind of get a breather this year and kind of get this program established under Coach Heupel.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'm going to be honest with you. If Vandy keeps going at this rate, they need to be out of the SEC. And I'll say it. I'll be the first one. They're the only school that, to me, and I know they just pledged, $330 million towards athletic or whatever. No other SEC school would duck it like that. And if they want to, there's plenty of other teams that we can get in the SEC that truly cares about athletics, that's going to have the push, because they're getting a cut of this money too, Mike. They're getting their slice of the pie that all these other schools that take it seriously are getting as well. And it's almost a disadvantage. That's a great point. So in my opinion, if Vanderbilt can't get it figured out, they need to be out of the SEC, and let's bring in somebody here who wants to compete, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We're not talking about the chess club, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not talking about the debate team, and there's nothing wrong with that. In the SEC, we know what pays the bills. For all these non-revenue sports too, we know what pays the bills, and that's football and men's basketball a little bit. I think it's a great point. We talk about Tennessee, and here's the way that I look at this Josh Heupel hire, because he was on rocky footing, no pun intended, at UCF if he had another bad year. That program was declining from the mountaintop they were at when Scott Frost left for Nebraska. And the way I see this Josh Heupel hire, and again, you with the NCAA stuff that's going on with them, with all the negative stuff, you weren't going to go out and get Jamie Chadwell. You weren't going to go out and get Billy Napier. Those guys that have built that equity up at those places, at the Lafayettes, at the Coastal Carolinas, they're going to wait on that next big job where there are no hands tied behind your back, because you know as well as I do, Mike, the SEC is already hard enough. And if you're having to try and fight guys like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, go down the list, with one hand tied behind your back, it's not going to work. So when I look at the Josh Heupel hire, to me, it's like the person that you date right before you find the person you're going to marry. That's what it seems. We got a good luck Chuck situation going on with Josh Heupel. Because, I and no disrespect toward him, but I look at that offense. I don't think it can sustain at that pace. You're not going to stop anybody. And I almost think Tennessee these next couple of years are going to be like the Harlem Globetrotters. Look, we all know what the final score is going to be. You don't go watch that game to see who's going to win. You go watch because it's high-flying offense and it may be fun. And they may lose games 56-35, or they may be able to throw up 42 every now and then. I know the Tennessee Ole Miss game might be over in 10 minutes. It may take 10 to 12 minutes for that game to be over. But your thoughts on the Josh Heupel hire? Because I think it's a stopgap. And really at this point, because look, I like the AD hire. I like who they brought in. I think the White family, you look at Mike down at Florida, Danny, the AD now at Tennessee, I like what they can do. But again, the AD kind of has his hands tied behind his back because nobody big time was going to take that job with what's going on.
Yeah, you're talking about the shades of Hal Mummy there with this offensive explosion. They saw what Coach Mummy did at Kentucky and certainly moved the needle offensively. I know Tennessee fans they need to be entertained. I mean, that fan base has suffered and endured. And by the way, they take it out on the SEC. You're right about the time you start feeling sorry for Tennessee. The Vol Twitter comes after you and blows you up on your Twitter account because you thought somebody called a bad play in a game or something. I mean, so it's kind of hard to feel sorry for Tennessee because Tennessee comes swinging. They come out swinging at everybody. They by far have the most aggressive, vicious social media out there because they're fighters, because they're winners, and their team can't win. And it upsets them because, look, they got Neyland Stadium, which is one of the best venues
unbelievable
for all of football, not just college football, but nothing like Neyland Stadium in October by the Tennessee River. The vertical layout and the explosion of orange is such a shocker color moment, sight scene. It's unbelievable. Going through the tee, the tradition there, the championships, the players in the league, the Peyton Manning legacy. How can it be that Tennessee is here today? It's almost unbelievable. You would think they could almost fall down and win more games and have more success, but it's just been one, football catastrophe after another from the time they hired Lane Kiffin, and that was like a nuclear spill. He brought in this renegade staff that included Ed Orgeron, by the way, and they commit all these violations, and so they're under investigation for like 3 years. So Derek Dooley's trying to recruit with a program that's under this cloud of investigation. And then they get these penalties that leak into Butch Jones' tenure. Yeah. Jones gets there from Cincinnati. He's underqualified. His first staff is absolutely not ready to win in the SEC. Somehow he gets some players. Somehow he gets Tennessee back in the top 10. Somehow he beats Florida Georgia in the same season, wins 3 straight bowl games, gets back-to-back top 25 seasons. Then he has one bad season, and he's the worst coach ever, and he's gone.
Yeah.
So in comes Pruitt, hired by Coach Fulmer, the legend, who we all imagine is going to tie this thing together. And by the way, he did a lot of good things for a lot of other sports, but it turned out Jeremy Pruitt wasn't the right fit. There was a lot going on, apparently, according to their own chancellor, more than they realized the severity of things. And like 10 people were fired. And you go, holy cow, this is, I think this is what would have happened if Lane Kiffin stuck around 3 years. And it's happening, 13 years later or 12 years later. So it's a crazy position for Tennessee to be in. But I'm telling you, with those resources, with those boosters, with that supportive fan base, like I said, so supportive, you don't feel, they won't let you feel sorry for them. They're so supportive. They'll come after you. You say, I feel sorry for you. Oh yeah, let me punch you in the nose. That's Tennessee. So I don't feel sorry because they're going to get it back, Jake. They've got money and they're going to make the hire. I agree with you. Stopgap hire, maybe the Mike Shula to Tennessee, right? Maybe this is the guy before the guy, as you said. And we'll see what White does. But we know that Heupel should be able to stabilize. A.D. White knows what he's going to get in Heupel. And to your point, I think we'll see some explosive football. And if nothing else, I think an entertaining team.
Yeah, no, I think you encapsulated it perfectly. And again, I'll say this. I coached there when I was at South Alabama. I've been on the sidelines when the ground's shaking, when it's so loud that the holes in the side of the guys' helmets are like somebody's whistling as loud as they possibly can. You look at the Vol Navy and the tradition that they have. And you're right. From a recruiting standpoint on social media, those guys are as locked in as anybody. If you want to take a master class on how your social media should try and influence recruits just by the sheer volume. Now, sometimes it may get a little vicious when they don't go to Tennessee, but they are 100% behind that bright orange, and we know they are. And we're here with Mike Griffith from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. DawgNation does an unbelievable job. You can see him as a contributor in the SEC Network. And I want to move on to the SEC West. I do want to hit Georgia here in a little bit, Mike, because I know there's been some things. I've got them projected to do some big stuff this year. You look at that first game against Clemson. I think it's a must win for him. I really think it's a must win, and I'm going to go over why later. And some people think I'm crazy, but you look at the West. All right, we all know what Alabama has, and we all know they don't regroup, they just reload. Now, will it take them a little bit of time to get their footing? I think it will, with replacing what they had to replace up front. Regardless of how many early enrollees and unbelievable five-star talent you bring, it's hard for guys, especially early, to understand what it's like playing in this league or playing at this level up front, because it's just different from a physicality standpoint. And most guys coming out of high school aren't ready, but if anybody can get them ready, it's that strength staff over at Alabama. Just with what you see Alabama returning right now, and I want to go down the list of some other schools in the West, just your thoughts on if, Alabama's going to just reign king once again. Obviously, last year, it's going to be almost impossible to redo what they did last year, the dominance with those veteran groups they had with Mack, Devontae, Jalen Waddle, even though he was hurt. But they do return some guys, and we all know that roster is loaded with talent.
Yeah, still the team to beat in the SEC because Georgia ain't done it yet, right? Still the team to beat in the West. I don't know how many people know this. Bryce Young went to the same high school as JT Daniels. Now, he came a year after Daniels left. Daniels, you hear about guys going pro early, Jake. He went college early. JT Daniels skipped his whole senior year, and Bryce Young's like, hey, I'm all about it. I'm there. Yeah. Where's Matter Days? Let me sign up. And I've talked to that high school coach about Bryce, and he says he's a running back playing quarterback. And we've seen RPO football, but I don't think we've seen it like Alabama's going to do it. And I'm anxious to see it. Could this be could that be their winning edge, that nobody's going to run RPO like Alabama and Bryce Young? I mean, remains to be seen, but I don't have any reason to doubt Nick Saban. Listen, I was the one jumping up on the table last year saying, you've got to make Nick Saban Coach of the Year. I get it. That award had turned into, the consolation prize. Oh, look, here's the best coach off a team that isn't that good. What is that? Like Kentucky's guy won it one. Like, what did they do? You didn't win anything. You lost to how do you win? It's like when the ACC made like the Louisville coach the coach of the year over Dabo's. Dabo's going undefeated. This guy's losing by 50 points. Oh, he's the coach of the year. What is this?
It's like being the skinniest kid at fat camp, Mike. That's what the award turned into.
What have we got? The AYSO Society handing out cupcakes to everybody after the game here. I mean, when did winning become no longer the standard for excellence? But anyway, my point is this: Nick deserved. There's been many other years Nick deserved Coach of the Year. He absolutely deserved it last year. When you think about the COVID crisis, the fact that the man coached through it twice, I mean, the false positive took him out of the equation the week of the Georgia game. I mean, Georgia was winning 24-20 at halftime with a walk-on quarterback, but still Alabama found a way to win a week that Nick Saban had his normal routine disturbed. And that's a lot. Routine is everything. And then he actually had it later. So, and as you pointed out, the team and the dominance, and to do it with Mac Jones, and wasn't Tua running around back there, breaking tackles and making plays this is a guy, I mean, this guy was an architect, man. I mean, watching Mac operate was like a surgeon. It was incredible. I'll wait to see what he does in the NFL when the bullets are flying around him. He had great protection, great receivers open and Najee, but he did his job to the T. And I give Nick Saban for putting all that together. And I think they're still the team to beat, even with Bryce Young. I know they got new pieces moving in there, but they've done such a good job reloading before. And there was a time, Jake, where I was one of these people that would say, they can't keep doing it. I said it enough times, and I was wrong enough times that I say, until I see it done otherwise, I'm picking Alabama. I got to see it to believe it. Yeah. Because even when they don't win the league, the college football playoff puts them in the committee, puts them in the playoff, and they win it. So even when they don't win, they win, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Alabama in the West. I really like the Harsin hired Auburn. I like going out of the box. I like what he did at Boise. Boise system guy. He was there a long time under those other Boise greats, Hawkins and Peterson. This guy's as Boise State, but he understands system football. And I like that you're bringing him in. This reminds me of when Tennessee hired Bruce Pearl. It was somebody from the outside in that was going to do things a little bit differently. And it took the SEC a long time to catch up to Bruce Pearl in basketball. People might forget, Bruce beat Billy Donovan like 7 out of the first 8 times he played.
Owned him.
Those Florida national championship basketball teams could not beat Bruce Pearl. He won 3 out of 4 out of back-to-back Florida basketball team. So, and I look at Harsin kind of like this. Now, he's got a long way to go before he can accomplish what Bruce has done. But I like the start that he's off to. I love the staff. Love Derek Mason hire. I think Bobo, I think there's a lot to that hire. And Bo Nix, and maybe it's just because I'm older and I covered his dad at Auburn, but I think Bo Nix, even though he may not have the numbers and he may not project like others, this guy's a winner. He brings intangibles to the table. And so I think Auburn will be competitive. Sam Pittman, I had him on the show earlier. I mean, dude, they got like 20 starters back. Now, if the quarterback would have came back, they could have been a dark horse, but with 20 starters back and 10 of these seniors and Sam Pittman and these cookies that his wife makes and the Arkansas's got, how can you not? Isn't Arkansas's like everybody's adopted team now, Jake?
Yeah, they are, and he's the perfect fit. And real quick, you talk about routine. If your sleeping routine's thrown off or you feel like you're not getting good sleep, head over to SundayScaries.com today. Use the promo code JBOY, JBOY. You save 25%. They have gummies, drops. And again, it's nothing crazy. Don't think it's something that it's not. I take 2 of the gummies before I go to sleep every night. I've been able to sleep a whole heck of a lot better. I was the guy that tossed and turned. My mind's always racing. I'm always thinking. That's probably why we're able to put out so much content. But they do a really good job, and they've got a 100% money-back guarantee. That's SundayScaries.com. Use the promo code JBOY. That's JBOY, and check those guys out. We're here with Mike Griffith. Loving this conversation. You hit on a couple things there, Mike, and I want to kind of reverse engineer this. Shout out to Area 51 real quick and talk about Arkansas. Sam Pittman is the perfect hire for Arkansas. He is the perfect fit. I don't think you could have created a better coach for Arkansas in a laboratory than Sam Pittman. He's a tough guy. I think he's going to be there for as long as they want him. I don't think he's a guy that's looking to make a huge step anywhere else. And, I thought the hires he made were really good. You look at Barry Odom, what he was able to do, because they were shorthanded. I hope people realize, everybody talked about how depleted Ole Miss's roster was on defense. Arkansas was basically running around with a JV level numbered team out there. They were 2 or 3 injuries away from really not having anyone. They returned the 20 starters. They're going to add some depth. Look at the way they recruited. I think you're exactly right. And no longer is Arkansas going to be hey, all right, good. We're playing Arkansas this week. Let's go ahead and we'll get the starters out after the first half, rest the guys up for next week. It's going to be a fist fight because those kids believe in him. And, you talk about Harsin. I love the Bruce Pearl comparison coming outside the box because that's something Auburn really doesn't do, and they haven't done that. And it's amazing, sometimes being a little different tends to give you different results. And Auburn hasn't been a championship contender. Call it for what it is. Gus Malzahn did not win championships at Auburn. He went to a national championship in 2013 because of really Nick Marshall at the end of the day being able to witch his way around in what's the craziest season I think ever of all time with the prayer and Jordan Hare and then the kick 6. But they didn't contend for championships. And I don't think Auburn's going to be a team that's going to win 10 games every year. They're not going to be able to, I don't think anybody's going to replicate what Nick Saban's been able to do. But I think Brian Harsin is bringing back accountability, Mike. I think he's bringing back physicality. And you've covered the SEC. You've covered Auburn. When Auburn is good is when you play Auburn, it's going to be a fist fight. It's going to be ugly in the trenches. They're going to run the ball down your throat. You're going to get some play action. They're going to take some vertical shots. But I think what Mike Bobo and Brian Harsin will bring to Bo Nix is they're going to take a little bit off of his plate. I don't think the personnel is very good up front on the offensive line that they have returning. I think you're going to see a lot of slide protection. You may see some max pro. You're going to see a lot going under center, play action off that because it slows the defensive end down. And I'm very interested to see because we all know that first year that guys come in that are outside the league, you do have that element of surprise a little bit, even though there is some tape. on Boise, but he wasn't with Mike Bobo. I think it's truly going to be a blend of both of those offenses. I think you're going to see mid-zone. You're going to see stretch. You're going to see some boot game, some waggle game. I think Auburn may even throw it to the tight end, as crazy as that sounds, because it's like the tight end stole the invisibility cloak from Hogwarts and been running around Auburn with it for the past 5 or 6 years. And I want to shift it as we kind of wind down here to the Mississippi schools. I look at Mississippi State with Mike Leach. We all know what a savant Mike Leach is offensively. And everybody from Dana Holgerson on through has been saying, Mike, you're going to have to run the ball at some point, not just the smoke draw. And in the SEC, you can't just run high-low op. You can't just run mesh, because other than LSU last year, once teams started mixing those coverages, because there's tendencies all over the place with Mississippi State in that offense, they started to be able to shut them down. How do you think Mike Leach adjusts if he does going into this year? And then I want to get to Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because, I was one who doubted the Mike Leach hire. I'm still not convinced that, you mentioned the mesh play. I'll mention the mesh team personality. I'm still not convinced it's going to work. I'm not convinced that he's going to get the level of buy-in. There was a lot of attrition off of Mississippi. How quickly can he get the players that he needs to win with his system at Mississippi? And can he get because it's not like everybody else just runs the ball in the league now. Nick Saban's turn. Hey, you want to throw the ball? Hey, come on up here, right? I mean, Harsin, Boise State, they're going to throw it around a little bit. Everybody, LSU, right? Max Johnson. Wow, I don't know how I overlooked Max Johnson, LSU. But getting back to
talk about RPOs.
Yeah, I got questions about Leach. Now, he answered some questions in Athens last year. I'll tell you that, Jake. And Georgia's doggone lucky that JT Daniels was starting, or that would have been a Mississippi State win. Let me tell you how close Georgia came to losing that game in Sanford Stadium to Mississippi State last November. And that was an undermanned team, by the way. Take a note from that, Vanderbilt. You can play if you don't have your perfect number of people or your algorithm met from your chemistry class or whatever they're doing. but I'm going to give I'm a little bit more optimistic on Leach than I was last year. I'm still not convinced, because I think it's darn hard to win in Mississippi. It's doggone hard to win at Mississippi State. I think it's easier to win at Ole Miss because you've got that proximity to Memphis, because I think you've got a bigger, more established booster base. Mississippi State, I kind of go back to those Jackie Sherrill days, back when he'd show up at the media days with the sunglasses on. Was he trying to be cool or was he hungover? We didn't know. It was Jackie. He dressed up as a clown sometimes. But on Saturdays, those teams, like I was comparing the current Kentucky, those Mississippi State teams, with the JUCO guys and the names you couldn't pronounce, all you knew is that they were going to bring some heat, man. And this is a different kind of heat. This is offensive heat. So can Leach get it done? Can he recruit well enough? Those are questions to me that are unanswered. And I'll slide into Ole Miss real quickly here, because I know that I was critical of Kiffin for his time at Tennessee. But I got to tell you, the guy is a great offensive mind. He's an incredible marketer. He looks good on TV. He's good on Twitter. And in today's world, more perception is more important than reality.
That's exactly
And if you hear Tennessee people talk, they go, "Oh man, that year with Lane Kiffin, it was the greatest ever." Oh, dude, they were 7-6. They got hammered by Virginia Tech in a bowl game. He recruited some criminals that literally criminals were on that team that infected that. But that was then. And Lane has grown. It's 12 years later. Yeah. And Lane has grown into one of the hottest coaching commodities. Everybody's got a past, right? Like Orgeron. Everybody, oh, what a great guy. He's such a wonder. Oh, yeah, go back 20 years. Everybody's got, and to me, we're America. We're all about second chances and moving forward. We all make mistakes, man. There's no doubt about it. And so I'm past that with Kiffin. Tennessee time was Tennessee time. The guy has done a great job recreating himself at every stop. And he could be the long-term answer at Ole Miss. He could be, if he can walk that fine line, Jake, and you know what I'm talking about. He's got
I know
to walk
exactly
that
what you're
tightrope.
talking about.
Hugh Freeze wasn't able to walk that tightrope. Kiffin's got to do it because, again, he's got a lot going for him. So I'm more optimistic about Kiffin than Mike Leach.
Yeah, and I wonder if Lane stays there. That's been the one thing, if he gets hot and gets a chance, will somebody take a chance on him? But I agree. I mean, you live and learn. He's been through the good and the bad. And when you're able to go to a place like Alabama and you learn defensively. Not saying that Lane didn't know, defensively what he's getting, but you really learn it and understand what the best guys are trying to do, because that's the best part about coaching. If you're an offensive guy coaching in Alabama, you get to see an elite coach defense, an elite staff, a guy that has forgotten more about defense than a lot of people know, when you're able to adjust that. That's why I think he has success against Alabama. And I think Steve Sarkisian at Texas would have success against Alabama if they played, because he knows the tricks. He knows what they're going to get. And if you're Alabama, you can't change everything for one game. That's not how installation works in football. That's not how the brain works. And I think that's a great point, Mike. And I'm going to let you go here for a second, or here in a second. I got one more question for you. And listen, if you need more time, I understand. Does Georgia take down Alabama this year? Because I'm battling back and forth with it. Losing Pickens really hurts. I know, thank goodness, Jermaine Burton's okay. I know they got guys like Dominique Blaylock. Kirby's recruited unbelievably. Does Georgia take Alabama out this year and have a chance to win the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I've learned is it's you never know. I mean, listen, Kirby has led Nick Saban at halftime all 3 games that he's played him.
Can you say that one more time, Mike? Can you say that one more time? That's incredible to me. Can you say that one more time?
It is an incredible stat. Kirby has led all 3 games against Alabama and Nick Saban he's played as the head coach at Georgia. He's only lost 2 games. He's lost 4 games over 5 years that he was leading at halftime. 3 of them were to Alabama, and 1 was to Butch Jones in that Tennessee game with the Hail Mary between the hedges. So when Georgia's leading at halftime, it's a pretty good bet Kirby's not going to lose it. Kirby's a really good coach. Georgia makes really good halftime adjustments, except against Bama. And Bama's kind of had the drop on them, and you got to give them credit. Now, I still say that 2018 SEC championship game was more about the injuries and, second and 26 in 2017. But at some point, it comes down to Alabama guys never being out of it. It comes down to Alabama guys always believing in their coach. It comes down to Alabama guys never having a letdown, winning the games they're supposed to win. And that's Nick Saban. And in addition to, as you said, those coaches seeing what he's doing defensively, it's about the system and it's about how he carries himself, and we'll see how Sarkisian does or how Butch Jones does, a couple of those guys that went to the Alabama coaching rehab clinic.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, on the staff. But Georgia could, there's some questions. So the reason that they could beat Alabama this year is they should be better than Alabama at the line of scrimmage, okay? They lost a couple guys on offense, but man, their offensive line room is just stocked with 5 stars. And Matt Luke is a good offensive line coach. Oh, yeah, Matt Luke, he's there. Oh, and by the way, so is Will Muschamp. There's a lot of brain power there. Todd Monken set a record with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for offense. Just a few years ago with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, not exactly, Manning and Brady back there. So they got a great mind and Monken on offense. I think Muschamp is exactly the echo chamber that Kirby Smart needs. There's really nobody in town that he can look in the eye. He's got to get on a jet and fly somewhere to find an equal. But now he's got Muschamp here, the echo, the guy that he can look and Will, what do you think about? Yeah, you're good. Or what you're thinking, Kirby. He's got that guy now defensively that I think he seems much more relaxed, much more comfortable and confident. And I think for $300,000, I think Will Muschamp is a steal. And I think
without a doubt.
Will, because his son is a walk-on here, and he gets to take a couple years to live life and enjoy his family. Because these coaches, Jake, you know this better than anybody. They got no life. They go to the grocery store. They don't know how to check out, man. So, I like the staff. I like the line play. JT Daniels is phenomenal, but question at left tackle. Got to answer that. Still got to get a corner in the portal. You're going to grow as the season goes on. Okay, you and I are going to disagree on the Clemson game. I don't think you need to win it. The good news, if you look at Georgia's schedule, it's pretty weak and soft until you get to Auburn, maybe Arkansas, but that's going to give that secondary time to grow up. But you got to get another cover corner. You've got to find your left tackle. You got to solve your running back rotation. I know Del McGee gets a lot of props, but listen, he started Elijah Holyfield over DeAndre Swift in 18. He's got Zamir White running number. Zamir's not the best running back on this team. Anybody with 2 eyes, they missed on Tank Bigsby. Look, you got to put the best guy on the field. I know this guy works harder. I know he's got a better story coming back from 2 knees. But if Kendall Milton isn't your number 1 at Georgia, there's going to be problems because he's by far and away the most talented runner. McIntosh, the most versatile. Cook can be used as a weapon. They're going to be fine at receiver. Got to solve left tackle. Got to get that extra cornerback. And then the final one for you, Jake, you got to find a Mike. Monty Rice was not an All-American, but he was a guy that got lined up properly. You watched the Peach Bowl. You saw the guy shot out of the cannon in the second half. Monty didn't play. Wrong alignment, missed assignment. You got to have a Mike that can control the defense, and they got to solve that position. So those are the hurdles between Georgia and a championship season.
Yeah, no, and again, it starts at left tackle. You know that as well as I do. If you can't protect JT, then the rest doesn't matter. I agree with you in the running back room. You can't package everything. The running back, James Cook, as well. He's a guy I think that's got to do more. I think he's actually a little bit overrated. That's just my opinion. And a few guys I think agree with me. And the reason I say real quick, Mike, and then I'm going to let you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, that Clemson game, because I think it's a race to 2 losses. And if you lose to Clemson, I'm talking about the playoff because Georgia's that good enough to get there, in my opinion, especially if they solve a couple of those problems. But every team has problems. If you lose to Clemson, then you lose to maybe Bama in the SEC championship game. That's 2 losses. And Nick Saban ain't coaching for Georgia, so it's not a shoe-in into the playoff if you have 2 losses. It's amazing how that follows from LSU to other places. That's neither here nor there. But Mike Griffith, man, it's always so great to talk to you, brother. You do such a good job, and you always stick to what you think, and that's why I enjoy having you on here. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media and find you in the AJC over there at DawgNation.
Appreciate it, Jake. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Griffith 32. And our website's DawgNation.com. So you can find me either one of those places. And appreciate doing the show, Jake. You're doing a great job, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, brother. Make sure you hit up eBay. Go to ebay.com/sneakers today. Go ahead and copy a pair of shoes. You can look cool like Mike Griffith walking around and whatever sneakers you got, whether they're old school, new school. They've got a whole team full of authenticators going to make sure it's the shoe that you wanted. No games, no gimmicks. Just a great price and a great delivery that's secure. All right. We appreciate you. Mike Griffith, unbelievable job. Go over to jboyshow.com. Get some merch. Subscribe on the YouTube channel, The Jboy Show, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's been another edition with the AJC's DawgNation. Mike Griffith, check him out on the SEC Network as well. And like JT passing the pocket, throwing the vertical, Jboy's gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with The Jboy Show.